Where's Patrick? There he is. Here's Patrick. It was the late 80s, and I was in my early 20s, and it was a February night, and I was tromping through the snow about up to my knees, coming home from a gay club called Chaps. Cool. They were closing the bar a little bit early because the February weather was getting so bad that they were going to be started closing the streets out there. So once again, I was heading home without having a date. I had gone home with a few guys just for a real quickie from Chaps and all the other really great places around Boston in the late 80s, but I never had a boyfriend. I never connected with anybody, and I blamed that on being from Salem. Because I don't know if you know gays from the South End, or at least gays from the South End in the 80s, but if you were from the suburbs, you might as well have been from Japan. They weren't following you home. And I had, in my early 20s, I had the kind of face that would really mature well when I became about 47. So I get to the Boston Common Garage, and I suddenly see somebody that I have seen in the bars over and over again, who I always just pined after. He wore this leather jacket and these Converse sneakers through the summer, through the winter, all the time. And it was absolutely freezing outside. And he had walked all the way to the Boston Common Garage in his Converse. And he was sitting on the floor just inside the entrance of those little huts just before you went down where the cars were parked. And I suddenly turned into my Irish grandmother, and I said, "What are you doing walking out with those shoes? You're going to catch your death." And he said, "Oh, I don't know, I usually go home with somebody, but tonight I had nowhere to go." And so I said, "Well, I have a warm place. Why don't you come home with me?" And he said, "Look, I really appreciate it, but we can't." And I said, No, I get it." And he said, No, we can't. I'm sick." And I said, "That's okay. It's cold. Come home. When the snow's over tomorrow, you can catch the commuter rail and go back to wherever you need to go." So we drive back to Salem through the snow, and we get to my place. And at night, I take all of his wet things, and I give him some of mine, and they really hang directly off of his body. And the guy that I found that was just so hot and so interesting in the club was very skinny and very small in my house. And we wrapped up around each other at night, and he was also very, very warm, a little bit too warm. And in the morning, that Saturday, we woke up and we saw the snow was about 2.5 feet, and all of the streets were closed. You couldn't get a snowplow down through Salem. You couldn't get down Route 128, Route 93. You couldn't get back to Boston, and I didn't even know if he had a place to get back to. So I said, "Why don't we just watch cartoons?" So the two of us bundled up in one of my grandmother's crochet blankets, the kind that you used to make with the little stars, and she would put all those stars together. And we watched cartoons and we ate Fruit Loops, and the snow just kept coming. And so then we watched sitcoms and the news, and we ate ravioli out of a can. And the whole time, all we did was not talk about who we were or what we were doing. And we touched each other constantly, but not in that way. We were hugging, and he sat on my lap, and we snuggled under a blanket. And Saturday turned into Saturday evening, and once again, I slept wrapped around him while he burned up and turned very, very wet through night sweats. And then Sunday morning came, and they were starting to clear things up, but I said, "Just stick around for a little bit longer." And on Sunday mornings in the 80s, you got to watch community auditions, which were terrible, but you had to do it because you were from Boston. And we ate pizza from the freezer, and he stayed one more night. And in the morning of Monday morning, I heard the snowplow go by, and I reached my arm out, and he was gone. His sneakers had been taken from the side of the bed. His leather jacket wasn't hanging over my dining room chair. And I thought, well, I'll see him again sometime. And I did see him once or twice at the clubs, and he would nod, but that was about it. And then, as was usual towards the end of the 80s, He just stopped showing up every once in a while, and then he just stopped showing up at all. And I don't know what happened to him, but I do know what happened to him. But I do know that for at least one February evening through the weekend, we were warm and we were safe. And even though it was only a couple days, we were both loved. Thank you.